Okay, good morning. So we're in the tour in Rishon and Bays, Sif Bays. The tour says, "Wuter litain begadav lakoves nochri v'orus la'avdon samach l'chashecha in katzatz l'damim." So the tour is sosem of lo katzatz lo also limken b'yom ravi o b'yom chamishi. The tour says over here is sosem like the Rishonim that Ktsitsa is necessary even for other malachas besides igros. If you remember, we spoke out last year by the sugi of igros, that the Gemara in Yutes from the Brisa there that the Bach raised the question, why, when the Gemara introduces the idea of katzatz over there, why is it only in relationship to igros, not to just to any malacha? So the Bach brought in the name of the Sefer Truma and a list of other Rishonim that they said that really Menachanami, the din of katzatz doesn't apply to Shar Malachas. It only applies to igros because igros has a special chumrah to it that it has Ksav Yisrael alav, and it's more nicker that it's a Maisa Yisrael, Maisa that it was given by Yisrael. So it was given Erev Shabbos by Yisrael, and as Ksav Yisrael, we had a Havamina to say that igros is similar to Malacha of Beiso Shel Yisrael, which is the ultimate heker that is for Yisrael, and the ultimate Marasayan is in Beiso Shel Yisrael. And there we don't have a heter of katzatz. Katzatz doesn't even help in Beiso Shel Yisrael, so we might have thought that igros is the same. Kamash Malan, it's not. Kamash Malan, it's a little more kal. The question is, why is it more kal? Exactly, maybe it's just, I thought there was just less nicker because it's not in the Jew's house. The Yad Ephraim back there in Rishon Zion wants to say because it's not Hana B'Gufa Shel Yisrael going on. There's no you're not netted from the Gufa Malacha, so that's why it's less Marasan. So I didn't quite understand his Mahalach. I'll remain with the kasha on that. But Bapashta is just less. It's just less Marasayan than it is by Beiso Shel Yisrael. So according to the Sefer Truma, it was only brought down for that reason to tell us a chiddush by igros, a chiddush lakula, but will come out for there that only igros that have a heker on the actual igeris, that's where you need katzatz. But oros la'avdon and begadim lakoves, there's no heker that is shel Yisrael, that you would not need katzatz at all. That was the shita of the Sefer Truma. But he brought down the Tosas and the Rush, however, learned that just like igros need katzatz, also oros la'avdon and begadim lakoves need katzatz. So then the question, how do kusha, then why did it have to speak it out dafka by igros? Because even according to Tosha the Rush, that other malachas need katzatz, you might have thought that only there it helps katzatz. But similar to the Sefer Truma, you might have thought that katzatz doesn't help by igros because there's such a strong heker that it's Shel Yisrael, Kamash Malan, that it does. But Kamash Malan, that it really is essentially like Oros L'Avdan. And therefore, you need heker and heker helps. So those are the two mahalchim that the Bach had before, and that he repeats it over here just without the kasha and the teretz from the sugya. Here in the Bach, also in Osvav, he brings down the same two shitas in the tour. So the tour, though, however, sosem, like shitas, Tosus and the Rush, that we need also by Oros L'Avdan. So the child, how do you understand, what's the Nekudas and Machlokas? So I think that okay, just 1 second, I just want to see. Yeah, okay. So we'll come back to this Hakira a few times. We mentioned it sort of in passing last time, but we'll go a little bit more into it now. I think we can clear a very essential Hakira in the din katzatz, that the Brisa tells us there's a din katzatz. What is the pshat in this din katzatz? We know that katzatz helps only in relationship to when you already have a kabbalanus. Like we started off in the psicha way back, we have two different types of ways you can hire a goy to work for you. You can hire him as a sachir, which is schir yom or schir shah, and for that, no katzatz or no nothing helps because he's considered your shliach to do this malacha. So it's asar me'ikar din. But then you have din kablanus, so you're not paying him by the day or by the hour. You're not paying for the time. You're paying him for the job. You're paying by the job. So we have this, and so when it's paying by the job, you're not. So then it takes it out of the realm of being schar Shabbos and being your shliach for Shabbos. No longer your shliach if he's doing it by the job. He can do it really when he wants. But we say that you need, in addition to that he's a kablan, that he's just working for the job and not for you. And be'etzem, we need on top of that also that your kotzets, the amount you're going to pay him. So this additional din of kotzats, what do you need that for? Once it's already a kablan, so what's the necessity of also being kotzets damin? Why do you need kotzats? What does kotzets accomplish? So you can look at it in two ways. You can look at it that Chazal are being mechadish over here that it's not considered a kablanus shlema. It's not a full matzav of kablanus until besides the fact that you're kaveya, that you're a contractor and not a hourly or day worker, you're working as a contractor. On top of that, you have to have this set amount, because only with a combination of the two things, you're a contractor and there's a set amount you're being paid, only then is it considered completely a daita de nafshe. Because we saw, remember for the Gemara Kuf Chaf Aleph, that what takes the Maisa out of being shlichos of the Yisrael, and it's considered that the Goy is doing it not as a shliach, has to be considered a daita de nafshe. He's doing it for himself, not for you. So that's for a daita de nafshe. What do you need to accomplish that? Does kabbalanus really accomplish that on its own right, or not? So according to the first four, we're saying kabbalanus is not completely a daita de nafshe until you have the combination of the two. You have kabbalanus and katzatz, then together, the two together accomplish is considered a daita de nafshe. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is, no, kabbalanus by itself is already daita de nafshe. So then what do you need katzatz for? Katzatz is only for maris ayin, that it shouldn't look like it's your shliach. Because even if you're making a kabbalanus, if you didn't have a set amount and the guy's he's sort of just working and he'll get paid later on, so that he doesn't have something really concrete to work with, so then it looks like he's still working for you. So it's really midin marasayin, not midin etzem kabbalanus. So you could say possibly that's an achlokas, Tosus in the Rush against the Sefer Truma and the other Rishonim, whether or not Oros L'Avdon needs to have katzatz or not. Because if you hold that kabbalanus is not a full kabbalanus until you have also katzatz, only then is it considered a daita nafshe. So then it doesn't make a difference whether it's igros or it's oros l'avdan or anything else, any other malacha you give. It's not complete. It's not a complete kabbalanus until you're also katzatz. So that's why Tosus and the Rush say that also oros l'avdan and begadim l'kovis need katzatz, because otherwise it's just, you can't say the goy is doing it a daita de nafshe. However, the Sefer Truma and the other Rishonim are holding that kabbalanus is kabbalanus on its own right. Maris ayin, it's a special din in maris ayin that without katzatz, that's maris ayin, that'll only apply when there is maris ayin, because it's nicker mitzad the ma'aser you're doing that there's maris ayin going on. So it will come out then that only by igros that you have a higher level of maris ayin, only there do you need to have, or do you need to have katzatz. Mashenke, if you just give over a beg of the koves or oros, that you can't tell mitzad the etzem oros or the other the items you're giving that it's a matzav for Yisrael, there is no maris ayin, so then there's no problem. So that could be the nekudas achlokas. That's what I first thought, but when I thought of it more, I think it's not shaykh to say that that's the nekudas machlokas. You can't say that, because the Tosus and the Rush, it will come out according to that. If this shot, the Tosus and the Rush will be holding, if you don't have katzatz, then the goy remains a shliach shal Yisrael. So it would be an elemental machlokas whether through kabbalah without katzatz is he still a shliach of Yisrael or not. So and you just have to deal with marasayim. So if that would be the case, according to Tosfos and the Rush, if he really be shluch shal Yisrael, then it would be usher also not only on Friday. Tosfos and the Rush say it's only usher if you're Moser b'erev Shabbos, but other days it's okay. Not like the Rif and the Rambam. The Rif and the Rambam, they leave out the Nakuda of erev Shabbos. We spoke about that already before by Igros, that also over there they did not according to the Rif and the Rambam, did not make enough community between erev Shabbos or other days. And the Beis Yosef was Medaik in the Rambam before by Igros, Afila Masr B'Yam Rishon is Asr, because Sof Kol Sof, he's your Shliach, is doing it inside your Shlichos. It doesn't matter what day you give it to him, unless you turn it into Matzah of Katzatz. So according to the Rif and the Rambam, Menachanami, they for sure are holding that without Katzatz, it remains your Shliach. And that's why it's also even in Miyam Rishon. That's the Shita, and that's the Shita here as well. And we see the Lashon Shulchan Aruch where it goes, the Rambam, the Shulchan Aruch does not machalik over here between erev Shabbos and any other day. The Ramah is. We'll speak about that. The Rif and the Rambam are the ones that are not. But since Tosfos and the Rush, and that's the psak over here of the Torah. The Torah says, also imken yom revi or yom chamishi, unless you gave it to him without katzatz. Also, unless you gave it to him Wednesday or Thursday, because the Torah is going like we're saying in the Tosfos and the Rush that it's even that's only an Isser on erev Shabbos. So if it's only an Isser on erev Shabbos, then we see from here that even Tosfos and the Rush also hold it's a marasayim problem. It's only an Indian of marasayim. So then, if so, what's the Nukudas Machlokas? If the Sefer Truma and those others, they also hold it's Midin marasayim. And actually, the Lashon of the Beis Yosef is like that. Beis Yosef says in Beis, it's clearly. The Beis Yosef says in the beginning of Os Beis, but time of the being in Katzatz, Shum de Shalo Katzatz, Michsi Ki'ilu Hu Shlucho Shal Yisrael. Kshenosno Lo Erev Shabbos, Nir Kenosno Lo Almanash Yasol Lo Malacha B'Shabbos. V'chi Katzatz Goy Ki Avid Ben Avshei Ka'avid, Little Schar V'lo Michsi K'Shlucho Shal Yisrael. So Beis Yosef clearly is learning that Katzatz has been doing marasayim. And he's going lahalacha. He's going in the Tosfos and the Rush. So then what is the Nekudas and Machlokas over here then? We can establish the taka according to the Rif and the Rambam. It's true what we said. It's without katzatz, it remains a shlichus. The Rif and the Rambam holding the katzatz is a chelik of the etzem kabbalanus. Without it, you don't have the kabbalanus, and it remains a shliach. But Tosfos and the rest of the Torah's passing are not that way. So what's the Machlokas? So I think you can say that it's a machlokas in the getter of the din of marasayim. How do we understand marasayim? That if you give it over with kabbalanus, then all there is a problem marasayim. Just the Sefer Truma holds there's only an issue of marasayim when the etzem ha'pu'ula that's being done by the goy has maras ayin in it, because you can clear shaila. How do you create the maras ayin? Is it because the pula of the goy has maras ayin in it, or just the fact that the Yisrael gave it to him in a way that it looks like he asked him to do it on Shabbos? The mesira of the Yisrael that creates the maras ayin. So the Sefer Truma and all those like him hold that there's only maras ayin for this when there's mitzad the esam ha'pu'ula. Do you see that it's shaykh to Yisrael? Only when there's Ksav Yisrael love, so he's carrying the Ksav Yisrael. So the mitzvah, the pula itself of taking the igros with Ksav Yisrael, there's marasayim within that, and that's where you need katzatz. But Mashen Ken Oris Lavdan and Begadim Lakobis, that there's no marasayim in the etzem kavisa of the goy or the ibud oros. There's no marasayim in that. Then there's no din katzatz. But Tosfos and the Rush are holding no. That not only if the Ksav Yisrael's on it, just the fact that the Yisrael on Erev Shabbos is Moser, this beged or this or to the goy to do it, and he goes ahead and does it on Shabbos, so then that's already Marasayan. And that's why when you're katzatz, then it becomes clear that he's not working on his own. Only then that's what's masalik the Marasayan. So that's Geshmak to understand the Gudas and Machlokas over here. And now the Beis Yosef, like he basically speaks this out. He's saying that he says beferish when you're Moser loy. Again, he says the Beis Yosef. Time to be a katzatz machine to shlo katzatz michzik ilu hu shluch shel Yisrael shenosnu lo erev Shabbos near kenosnu lo manas yasalo melech Shabbos. That katzatz already looks like a shliach, and then when you did it on erev Shabbos, then it looks like you asked him to be a shliach to do it on Shabbos. Your katzatz takes it out of that. So you could understand the Beis Yosef. He's just saying this in Tosfos in the Rush, not in the Rambam. The problem is that a little earlier in the Beis Yosef, he quoted the Rambam also, and the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and the Kuntres Achron, and it's Aleph in the end of Simon Reish from Zion. So he actually learns the machlokas like we're learning. I saw afterwards that he learns that the Rif and the Rambam hold that it's a din shlichus, and that's why it doesn't help before. The other Rishonim hold that it's only Marasayan. So he speaks this Nukuda out. Just he has a problem with the Beis Yosef because Beis Yosef seems to be saying this in the Rambam also, and the Rambam seems clearly not that way. It's not Marasayan, it's a real shlichus. And that's why the Rambam also is from Sunday. So I'm not sure how to deal with that point. I would learn it's Lav Dafka that Beis Yosef is this part of the Beis Yosef is just going into Tosfos in the Rush. Anyway, that's just a side nakuda. Okay, so that's one nakuda, and yeah, okay, so I think that really explains. Another point I just want to speak out is that the Beis Yosef and Sif Dalet and the Bach over here by us bring down the Shitas Aran that if you created a matzav of kablanas with katzatz, so the Ran says, let's say you gave the goy oros la'avdan, you said on Friday you gave them or to do and you to work with, and you said, please make me a pair of boots, and he finishes them on Shabbos and sends them to you. You can't go get it from him anyway because you can't. It's usher to go to the Beis Uman. That's a Marasayan. That's a separate Marasayan. They could never go to the Beis Uman to get it, even if you made it on Friday or Thursday, Friday. But to go pick it up from the Beis Uman, you can't do it on Shabbos. That's always Marasayan. But if Mashiach can, if he sent it to you, let's say he made the boots on Thursday or Friday and sent it to you on Shabbos, he was Meshager, he sent it to you, that's okay, you're allowed to receive it. What if he finished it on Shabbos and then he sent it to you? So he worked, you weren't over any Isser at all because you gave him the Oros Erev Shabbos, but you were Katzatz, and it was a Kabbalanus with Katzatz, so there's no problem with what he did. And now he sent it to you. So the Ran holds that since you did it totally beheter, then you're allowed to be nana from on Shabbos. You can put those boots on. However, say for a truma, the Bach brings down that, and the Beis Yosef also just mentions more briefly with the Bach more barichus, that the Mordechai and others say that you're not allowed to receive it on Shabbos. He brings down, the Hagos Ashri he brings down. It's in the beginning, it's in Dalet in the Beis Yosef, that he brings Aval Hagos Ashri Kasav Li Nira She'asr L'Halbish Begadim She'nasnu L'Uman Me'erev Shabbos V'Nigmar Malachtam B'Shabbos. You're allowed, it's usher to be nene if you finish the malach on Shabbos. V'Afki Niktzas Scharon, even if you're a kotzetz. So, okay, so it's a Machlokas Hashanah over here. The Darkei Moshe brings the Maril Aserd, and so it's major Machlokas. The Bach is Marich to show that Sefer Truma and all the many other Rishonim say it's Asur. The reason they say it's Asur is because we see from the sugya in Kuflat Beis that you can't be nena from the or that a goy lit for Yisrael. And Tosas over there learns that, if you remember the Tosas at a Shiloh, what's the difference between over there, the or, that if your kotetz damim, and you hire the goy to do the work, to light the or, and even with kotetz damim, it's still Asur. It's clear over there from the Gemara that it's Asur. It's only when the goy lit it for himself, mamish, then it's mutter. But if he did it for Yisrael, even with kotzatz, it's Asur. So why is that different than when you said if there's a deleka, there's a fire in the Gemara in Kuchaf Aleph, if you said kol hamachabe enu mafsid, anyone who puts out the fire is not going to be mafsid. And Rashi over there, and we brought back then Rashi in Yevamos, Kuf Yadal learns that enu mafsid means basically you're saying don't worry, you're going to get paid for this. So that's like kotzitz damim, and the Gemara said it's when you put it out, it's a daited and afshay. So he's allowed to go ahead and do it, and when he does it, you're allowed to go ahead and go into the house. So what's a nafkamina? So Tosa said over there in Kufchaf Beis that the nafkamina is by or the gufa shel Yisrael is nene from the gufa malacha. You're directly nene from the or that the goy lit. And on that we don't say a daited and afshay. We don't have a hector of katzatz a daited and afshay when gufa shel Yisrael is nene from the gufa or. Masha'inken by the deleka, you put out the fire, so you're not nene directly from the Isra of Kibui. The Kibui itself you're not nene from, it's just Mamela, since, remember we saw back then the Ran and the Ritzvah, they said you're just Mavriach Hari, you just took away your Masalik Emonea, a reason you couldn't go into your house. It's like you took away the lion that was at the door, there was a fire going on, you put that out, so now you're allowed to go into the house and be nene from it, because you're not considered to be nene directly your goof from the goof hamalacha. That's what we spoke out then from Tosfos. And the Sefer Truma, explicitly, if you want to see the whole Sefer Truma inside, the Yad Ephraim and the beginning of Reish Mem Zion brings the whole Sefer Truma down, because he said it's not matzah to have it around, so he brings the whole Lashon down. So he sees clearly, he's learning like Tosfos, and all the others that learn like him are learning like Tosfos, that you can't be, that there is no heter of katzatz by Gufa Shel Yisrael. That's like we see Beferish in the Gemara over there in Kufchaf Beis. So the Bach says, Mamela, the Ran is a Das Yachid, and we can't go with him. So if the halacha will be like all these other Rishonim that he brings, that you're not be nene if it was finished on Shabbos. You can't be nene from it on Shabbos. To wait till after Shabbos, even though you did know Isser, but you can't be nene from it. So the kasha is on the Ran. How does the Ran learn? The Gemara over there in Kufchat Beis. So Pasha, you have to say that the Ran learns not like Tosas over there. The Ran's cholok and Tosas. Tosas making an assumption that the Gemara in Kufchat Beis that says Asur B'nene from the or that the goy lit for you is talking about a case of katzatz. But the Gemara doesn't say a word about katzatz. That's just an assumption Tosas makes. So the Ran could easily learn the Gemara over there is not talking about katzatz, and that's why it's asur. But enachanami, if we be katzatz, then even or would be mutter. Even though Guf Yisrael nene migufa or, he doesn't hold that whole svara. It's all totally on one thing. If you did it isur or not, and I think the Ran makes a lot of sense to Torah, because the way we explained it until now, the pshat in Daited and Nashe, when you have katzatz, we have a kabbalah of katzatz. So what's going on is he's no longer considered a shliach of Yisrael. He's considered a Daited and Nashe. He's doing it for himself. All things being done for himself. So everyone agrees. There's no machlokas if a goy, let's say in his own house, lights a fire for himself, turns on a light, and sits and reads. Then a Jew walks into the house. Then for sure, there's no one is called. Everyone agrees that the Jew now is allowed to be netted from that light, because the goy did it totally for himself. There's no shaykhus to Yisrael to it. So we see a yisoid that even though the guf ha-Yisrael is netted from the guf ha-malacha that the goy did, there's no issue whatsoever if the goy did it for himself. So the Ran says pashut. The Ran's learning that hu adin, if you have katzatz and kabbalanus, that we consider that halachically to be a daita denafshe, he's doing it for himself, then why is that any different than a goy lighting a house in light in his own house? That's why the Ran holds it's mutter. So then for Keret, now Adrabah, now we have to understand, so what's the svara of Tosfos? What's the svara of the Sefer Truma and the others? What's going on over here? Why, if we're saying that it's mutter, you're saying that you're allowed to let the goy do this work on Shabbos when it's katzatz and it's kabbalas, because we say a daita denafshe, then why can't you be nen on Shabbos? What's this for? Not to be. Why would katzatz not work? The gabi being the goy, the Yisrael himself being nen on Shabbos. So I think you have to say a very yesodistic point over here to explain the Rishonim. I think this is a very, sort of this is shedding a lot of light on the whole understanding of these dinim, this machlokas. I think you have to say that if you think about it, the case of the goy lighting a house lighting a light in his house. He's not lighting a house. Okay? He's lighting a light in his house for himself. Is the Rishonim are learning? Tosfos and the Rishonim are learning is completely choluk from our case of daita denafshe. And here's what I mean. When you hire a goy with kablanis, you give him or, you give him oros, or you give him begadim to be koves, to kvisa, and you do it with kablanis in your kotzets. So if you ask the goy, who are you doing this for? He's going to say, I'm doing this for a Jew. There's a set amount and there's a kabbalas. That doesn't take away from the fact that it's being done for the sake of the Jew. All it does is creates a matzav that when the goy works on Shabbos, then he's not your shliach to do it dafka on Shabbos. But essentially, whether he does it on Shabbos or not, he's doing it for the sake of a Jew. So, since he's doing it for the sake of a Jew, it's just that we have taken away the Shabbos problem by technically considering him not your shliach on Shabbos. But since sof kol sof, he is doing it for a Jew. So when does it help to have kabbalas with katzatz? That's only mitzad allowing the goy to go ahead and do the malacha. He can go ahead and do it. But since he's doing it sof kol sof, it is for you. Even on Shabbos, when he does it, it's really essentially for you. It's just we did away with the Shabbos problem, the shlichus problem on Shabbos. But this overall maisa, the overall malacha is being done for the sake of a Jew. So now, if the Jew goes and is nena from it on Shabbos, then you lost your heter. Either it becomes then maras ayin, then the katzas doesn't help to take away maras ayin, or maybe it becomes asum ikar adin. But since we're dealing on the level of maras ayin, we said all the Rishonim here are learning that the ikar reason you need katzas to begin with is because of maras ayin. The Sefer Truma himself, that says you need katzas, he says you only need katzas, that's and by you only need katzas generally for igeris, because there's more maras ayin in etzem apula. So when the Jew goes and is not in front of Shabbos, then everyone's agreeing the katzas doesn't help, because then it becomes a matzah of a maras ayin. If you ask the goy, who are you doing this for a Jew, and how the Jew takes it and uses it on Shabbos, then the katzatz no longer helps to be misalik the maras ayin, and it becomes usher again. So they'll say you can't compare this to a goy that lit a light in his own house for his own sake. When you ask the goy when he's turning the light on, who you're lighting this for, and he says, for me, for myself. Now the Jew happens to walk in and be nena from it. That's completely different. Where when he's working really for a Jew and he's creating these boots for a Jew, and just the katzatz took away the Shabbos problem. If he turns around and takes away the maras ayin from it, even though he gave it to him on Friday and he asked him to do it, but since it's kabbalas with katzatz, it takes away the maras ayin. But if he goes and he's actually nena from it on Shabbos, then the mafreya, the maras ayin is back. Then the whole thing was done for a Jew on Shabbos, mitzad maras ayin. So that'll be the nekudas of machlokas between the Ran and the other Shonu. Is it the Ran is holding? No, it's not just taking away maras ayin. It's completely becoming a comma that we say a daita denafshe of it. it becomes totally what do you call it? It's totally the Maisa of a goy for himself. So that's I think the central malchokas. But the halacha, it's important to keep this in mind. The halacha, we're holding that really the whole Maisa is being done for the Jew, and just we're taking away the Maras Ayin with. That's what Katzatz accomplishes.
Rabbi.
Yeah.
Certainly nobody would hold that after Shabbos you have to wait Kadesh Yaseh in this type of situation.
Right, because it's all done totally beheter. I did see somebody talk about this, but it didn't make so much sense to me. Okay, now just a couple of last pratim in the Din Katzatz. Mishnah Berurah says that even if you didn't say an exact amount, it's still considered katzatz, as long as you said you're going to pay the guy. I think it's a very stark araya that from the Gemara in Kufa Aleph, that if over there all you said is kol ha-mechabe enu mafsid, so you just were hinting the fact that there's going to be payment, so you certainly did not say a certain amount over there. And even so, we said a daikted nafshe. So the horror, I don't know why nobody brings that as a raya, but it's to me a very clear raya. The Bir Halacha has a suffix if you didn't make any t'nai at all. In a place where there is a sachidua, a certain amount people pay, you didn't say anything at all. You didn't say anything about you will be paying. He has a suffix of what will be. If that helps or not, because it's just the fact that there is a sachidua out there and a set amount out there, but you didn't talk about it. But in Shmir Shabbos brings the Shem Shlomo Zalman, that's all, that in a place where everybody always pays, no such thing as going without paying, and there is also a set amount, then that's tantamount to being katzatz. You don't need, in other words, what's most nicer for that is you don't need to, if you walk in on Friday with your suit to the cleaners, you don't have to say anything to the cleaners that, oh, don't worry, I'll pay you. I'll pay you when I pick it up. Of course you pay when you pick it up. Nobody pays before. And of course you pay when you pick it up because no one gets their clothes unless they pay. There's no such thing as not paying. So, and the amount, how much does it cost? It's written right on the wall. On the, there's a chart on the wall of a pair of pants and a suit and a shirt and everything else. So it's the Shlomo Zalman is saying that that's considered katzatz. You don't need to speak it out. You don't need to make it tonight. And there's another point in the Mishnah Berurah that by the other issue over here, that all this is mutter as long as you don't say explicitly that you're going to be kovei malachta b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to tell if you tell the cleaner that Shabbos is early this week, the cleaner's up until 6, Shabbos is over at 5, and you give it to him right before Shabbos, and you say, I have a wedding Saturday night. Can I pick it up at 5:15 Saturday night? So that's tantamount to being, you didn't speak about doing it on Shabbos. That's the same thing. That's tantamount to saying being kovei malachta b'Shabbos. That's usher. So Mishnah Berurah speaks that out. We just had a suffix. We had a discussion here in the Kollel that what's the din if you bring it right before Shabbos and you say I'm going to pick it up first thing Monday morning. What time they open? They open at 8 o'clock. And pick it up at 8 o'clock Monday morning. So they have time to do it on Shabbos and on Sunday, but they don't work on Sunday. You know they don't work on Sunday. So can you say that they don't want to work on Sunday? That's their choice not to work on Sunday. Since they could work on Sunday or Saturday night, they would have enough time to do it after Shabbos before you pick it up. So that's their choice not to work. Is that considered also kovei malachta b'Shabbos? Or since that's the norm and all the cleaners are all closed on Sunday, you don't find any cleaners open on Sunday, so it's not really the choice of the workers or whatever, or they can't just suddenly call the workers to do your suit on Sunday, because who's going to come in? Since when did they work on Sunday? So perhaps that's also, if you say first thing Monday morning, it's also tantamount to being kovei malachta b'Shabbos, because the only time that they do work from the time you gave it to them to the time you're going to pick it up is only on Shabbos. So you could look at that two ways. I did not resolve that yet. Let's leave that as a suffix. I have to try to find poskim and talk about that. Haven't found that yet. And one last nakuda just to mention, the Mishnah Berurah, it's really the Magen Avraham, the Mishnah Berurah quotes it. is that he says if there's shahos b'yoyim, if there's time on Friday for the goy to finish it, even without katzatas mutar. You give it to him you give the guy the suit at 9 o'clock Friday morning. They're in a place where there's no katzitza. You give a guy he's doing he's doing some kind of you give a seamstress to finish sewing a dress. It's going to take 3 hours to do it. You give her 9 o'clock Friday morning. You weren't katzatz anything. You'll see afterwards how the job is. You'll see whatever, you'll decide everything. But you don't say a word about payment. So there's no katzitza stamim and there's no set amount either. Even so, it's mutar if they have shahos b'yom, they have enough time to finish it. That's tantamount to the fact that there's shahos b'yom to finish it. It's tantamount to giving on a Wednesday or Thursday. That there's also no problem with marasayan. There's enough time to do it. There's no marasayan, and then there's no marasayan even if they decide to do it on Shabbos because that's their choice, right? Because even without katzatz, remember, keep in mind that you're not paying for the hours. You're paying for the kabalanas. You're paying for the job. So be'etzem is not really shlichus. It's really a marasayan problem. The katzitza. So the fact that you gave it with shahos b'yom l'gamrei, that takes away the marasayan. Even if they decide to do it on Shabbos, you're not over a problem with marasayan. The only difference nafkamina is that if you walk in and you see you're doing it on Shabbos, then that's the end of the Shulchan Aruch, and then Mishnah Berurah brings down that you have to be mocha. That was from the Sefer HaRakeach that the Beis Yosef brought down. The Rakeach said that if they're doing it without katzatz, even though it's ofen shel heter, you're not being over anything. When you see them doing it, then you have to be mocha. But so don't walk. So if you gave it to the seamstress, don't go into the seamstress shop on Shabbos in case you might see her doing it on Shabbos. You have to stop her. Okay, so that's for today. A little shorter today.
Shkoyach, Rabbi, thank you very much.
Maybe I'll just tell you end up with one little something of Parshas Mon. Parshas Mon this week, and so the Torah says at the end of the parsha, there's a school for Parnasa to say it and everything like that, and at the end of the parsha, so the Torah says that Moshe tells Aaron to take tzitzenas of man, take a can of man, and put it to the mishmeres next to the mizbeach, that it should be musar to people if they need to hear it. They can take out the man. Rashi says that in fact, during the time of Yirmiyahu, before the Churban Beis Hamikdash, they in fact had to bring out the man because Yirmiyahu was being mochiach them for not learning Torah. And they said, we're too busy working, we don't have time to learn Torah. So he went and took out the man that was still waiting all that time until before the Churban Beis Hamikdash, and said, look at this man that fell from Klal Yisrael. Just like they had the man, also you should have time to learn. That was the musar he gave them. And the obvious question is that why is the man musar for them? The man was given at a time that all there was man. They didn't need to work. The Gemara in Eruvin says, Lo nitna Torah el ochle haman. Because he wanted to give Torah to a nation that they could just be totally immersed in nothing but learning. Yom v'layla, they didn't have to worry about parnasa. All they had to do was take it and pick it up. And so the man was given to a whole different kind of a matzav. Once they went into Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Neshavos, that's when the man stopped, and now it's upon us to work the land. That's what Hashem's ratzon was, to have all the halachas of Eretz Yisrael and farming, etc. So how the fact that there's man who supplied to a whole different generation, how would that be tochacha to Klal Yisrael who claim that they don't have enough time to learn because they're too busy farming? So I once heard many years ago, based on the Malbim, that there are actually two separate nisim in the man. One nes was that it fell. The very fact that it fell was a huge nes. But there was a second nes that everybody had a set amount they're supposed to take for themselves. And it says that don't take any more than your portion. And if you keep more than you deserve, then it's going to spoil and get wormy, which it actually did by Dasan Vaviram. So the message of that was that besides that Hashem's giving you a matana, but if you overdo it, you try to take more than your portion, it's going to be wormy and go bad. So what Yirmiyahu is machiach them is that true, you have to do a shtadlus. You can't just sit back and expect man to fall. you're supposed to farm land, and that's what's on Hashem. That's why He brought you in Eretz Yisrael. But Hashem never meant for you to have worked that hard. Why are you working that hard? There's no time to learn. It must be you're trying to add extra hours. You're trying to bring extra bounty and save up more stuff. And so, just like then, the man miraculously got spoiled and got wormy just overnight. Also, Hashem has many ways to lose that money. Fender benders and all types of things that can happen that can suddenly unexpected costs that thousands of dollars can go on these things. So if you look at this man and remember that if you try to take more than you deserve, it's not going to help anyway. And that's the Chacham mitzad the man. So it's a very important yesod in Musar to get across to people that the realization that do your ishtadlus, because you need to do ishtadlus, but ultimately it's all b'yad Hashem. And to try to go overboard, you're not maviach anything. You're losing the message of what your life's really all about and what you're supposed to be doing with your life. It's just a important nekuda in the man. So have a great Shabbos.
Shkar, Rabbi, thank you. Beautiful. Good Shabbos.
Take care.